Hello and welcome to Unwinding Minds. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the self-love and empowerment movement and where I think it's letting people down. So let's get started. This is obviously very much an opinion-based video. The thing about the self-love movement is it has such great intention behind it. And for many people, reaching a state of self-love is made easier by a lot of the content that they see online. So I want to add to the conversation in a positive way and not reduce from the people who have already achieved self-love or are on that journey of self-love and are finding it easy because of the content that they've already accessed. Don't want to take away from that. What I would like to do is talk to the people who are struggling to reach this kind of mythical, almost seeming place of self-love. If you feel horrendously bad about yourself, and you have felt horrendously bad about yourself for a prolonged period of time, years, your whole life perhaps, or at least as far back as you can remember, it's often put forward as this straightforward concept of, well, if you just think differently about yourself, you will suddenly magically love yourself. And that's true. But that's not clear in terms of how do you get there, you know? So I think I would like to translate that a little bit more, because I think it's too much of a jump, actually. And that's really what I want to talk about. The expectation that you will go from hating yourself and not loving yourself to loving yourself, accepting yourself, being a positive force in your own life. The truth is, life is very, very complex, and you might be positive about yourself in some regards and negative about yourself in others. And that says a lot about the people around you. Other people influence our opinion of ourselves, but also self-talk is a really important component of self-esteem and of self-love or self-hatred. The thing about self-love from self-hate is that the transition between those things is very gradual and made in many, many small steps. It's not as simple as yesterday you hate yourself because, I don't know, let's say you've grown up with an abusive parent, just as an example, who, is always on you about academic achievement. That's really common. And so you've learned to do that for yourself because your caregiver gave you the impression that that was the right way to treat yourself, to be unkind towards yourself, and that would create motivation and therefore that kind of academic success that they were looking for. The reality is, it's too large a jump to go from treating yourself cruelly to treating yourself kindly. And I think where the self-love movement lets people down is neutrality is ignored. What would it be like to be completely neutral to yourself? Let's take that example of childhood, educational difficulties. You might not even have any educational difficulties, by the way, but if a parent has an excessively high goal that outstrips your ability, then it may feel like you are stupid or that you are not achieving your academic prowess, as you should be, in the eyes of somebody else's judgment. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Looking at a view or a belief like that is too incongruent to jump to, actually, I'm doing a great job, I'm doing the best that I can. That's the goal, right? That's the end point. And people get confused between this idea of, why am I not there? I'm over here. I should be over there by now. First of all, let go of the idea of you should be. If you can, where possible, because it's not realistic. Changes are made in terms of your outlook, in terms of your style of thinking over a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight for almost anybody in almost any circumstance. So it's better to look at, okay, what if it's just okay that I got a B on that test? It just is. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. When we look at trying to shift our gears into, self-love, being like really satisfied with having a B, if you're ignoring the pit stop of, I'm okay with this, you can never be positive about something that you're not okay with, that you haven't found a way to accept. And it would be okay to replace some of those harsher thoughts, because we all have them sometimes, harsher thoughts towards ourselves, with ideas like, it's okay. It's okay that today my disability limited me to only being able to wash my face rather than have a shower. It's okay that I wanted to go out with my friends and unfortunately I wasn't able to because of my chronic illness. Or it's okay that I wasn't able to turn in that project because I was so anxious about it. Just really feeling that's okay. I had a therapist a long time ago who said, why don't you try ending thoughts with, and that's okay. And that was very healing. It felt unreal at first. And that's the problem, that's why I mentioned incongruence earlier on. Congruence is where we are authentic and honest with ourselves in a positive way, always tempered by positivity, where we are genuine. So when we have a thought that is too radically different from what we genuinely believe about ourselves, which by the way isn't the same as objective truth, but what we believe about ourselves. If you genuinely believe about yourself that you're the worst thing since sliced bread, you're the absolute worst person there has ever been because you didn't get an A, or because somebody bullied you, or oh god, there's so many reasons that people can put themselves down. I could be here all day listing them. But if you genuinely believe that about yourself, that you're not good enough, it's too much of a jump to say, well, not only am I good enough, I'm great. It's too far. And that's where I think that the self-love movement lets people down. You have to find a way with being okay with what's there before you can find a way to love what's there. Sure, there are people who turn these things around overnight and go from hating something to loving something, but the truth is, to my mind, resistance is inevitable. When you have a belief and you're trying to fight against it with the complete opposite mentality, your brain, your body, your being will resist that. And what we resist persists. We will inevitably let ourselves down on that journey because the goal's too high. When I was a mental health coach, I talked to a lot of people about SMART targets, and I appreciate that SMART targets aren't for everybody. They don't always like SMART targets. Some people I've worked with have absolutely loved them. But that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. That's what SMART stands for. So if you've got the specific goal to start looking at yourself more positively, it's usually speaking not specific enough. Okay, where do I want to treat myself better? Where do I know I'm not treating myself as well as I might treat a loved one? If there's something that you know you're persistently doing to yourself, then looking at that as the specific target. Okay, I know that when I fail a test, I tell myself I'm stupid, or I tell myself I'm never going to be good enough. I tell myself X, Y, and Z. That's a specific thought that you want to target. Measurable. Well, you know where you're at right now with that thought, the types of things that you might respond with it. I'm stupid, all of those kinds of thoughts. It's measurable in the sense that in this world where you accept yourself, or even perhaps love yourself at a certain stage, you can measure that because you've made that transition from thinking of yourself as being stupid or thinking of yourself as not being good enough to, okay, I'm okay with myself, or I'm actually really good with myself. I did my best in there. I know I did. Achievable. That's where I think people are let down the most in the self-love movement. It's not achievable to say, I will absolutely overnight turn myself around and love myself. Realistic. Again, is this something you would expect a loved one to be able to do? Time-bound. That's reasonably obvious. If you're looking at different ways of thinking, have you thought about how often you're measuring that? Check in with yourself monthly or weekly and see whether anything's changing, or whether things started to change and then you got really happy with your progress. And it's human nature, we go back to the things that we were doing before. Not even intentionally, we relax into the old way of being, and we don't allow ourselves to progress in the way that we were progressing. It's normal. If that's happened to you, that's okay. It means that next time, looking at checking in with yourself perhaps a little bit more frequently than you were allowing yourself to is going to be more helpful for you. But anyway, back to incongruence and this idea of loving yourself and being radically accepting. I think there's a huge amount of beauty and happiness that can come from the radical acceptance movement. I really do. It's extremely therapeutic. Is it extremely probable that most people are going to achieve it and going to be able to achieve it with ease and with grace? No, because it's two very incongruent states of being. It's too far. You can think of it as kind of a seesaw. You need the seesaw to settle in the middle before it can go the other way. And you are probably, in all likelihood, going to keep tipping backwards and forwards like a seesaw. In some areas you might love yourself. In some areas you might be okay with yourself. In some areas you might still really not like yourself. And that's all okay. Doesn't mean that you're failing at looking at loving yourself more. When I was a lot younger, I was told an acronym which helped me a lot and has helped many of my clients before, which is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Not the friendliest of names, but it doesn't take itself too seriously either, which I've always admired. Keep it simple, stupid as a concept is, if you don't need to complicate things, then don't. Is part of the reason why you feel you're letting yourself down all the time because your standards are extremely high? Could that be why you are not feeling content with where you are right now? Contentment is a much more achievable goal than love. Loving where you are. You might come to love where you are, but you're certainly not going to reach it if you don't reach contentment with where you are. And you can do that at any stage of your life. Admittedly, it's a lot harder at different areas of your life. But if you continue to resist a thought, a feeling about yourself, it will persist. Instead, I encourage open curiosity. That's really interesting that I wasn't very kind to myself there. What caused that? I'm curious about my experience here. Why am I being so mean? Would I expect somebody I love to speak to me like this? Would I speak to somebody I love in this way? They're helpful markers to try and figure out, where are you really at with something and why have you gotten there? How? How did you get there? If you think that you're stupid, or you think that you're not enough, what thoughts, what actions, what things in your life events have occurred that have led you to believe that to be the truth? Because I can guarantee you there's somebody out there in very similar circumstances to you who's really pleased with their life, really content with their life. What makes you different from them? Outlook. That's the difference. If somebody has an outlook where they are net content with themselves, it doesn't really matter what's going on practically in their life. So anyway, those are my therapy thoughts. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Therapy Thoughts on Unwinding Minds. If you'd like to learn more about my counselling work or about my work with the chronically ill and the disabled, please check the description and the pinned comment. And if you like this kind of content, please feel free to subscribe, to like the video, to share it with somebody that you know and love who is struggling to love themselves. We post a lot of different mental health content on this channel, and I'm sure if you take a look around you'll find other things that you would enjoy watching as well. I want to say at the end here that it's okay if you're not where you want to be on that self-love journey right now. It doesn't mean that you will always be where you are. Self-acceptance is possible. It sometimes takes many years. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes hours, sometimes it takes just the right moment to get there. But you can get there. And from that place, you can come to self-love as well. But it really is okay if you're not there yet. I'd love to hear your thoughts in I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. What are your views on the self-love movement? How do you think it's serving people? How has it served you in the past? I'd be really interested to hear what you think. So please leave us a comment and I'll have a read. Thank you so much for joining me today, and take care.